All right, ASLers, welcome to another episode of Vaseline with Stu. We are covering, in this particular series of episodes, the campaign game for the Long March. It will take a while to go through and complete those, but we want to show you how the campaign is conducted. The campaign starts on LM2, Resisting the Constriction, which is what we started here, and then we'll continue on to LM3 and a couple others. It might skip one or two in the multi-scenario session. There is no campaign game map per se for this series of scenarios. They're most, as we covered before, most of them are just solid infantry, very few support weapons here and there. And what we've learned, Mark and I, in our first two scenarios, that you can't rely on the support weapons to carry you home. You have to be able to use your infantry, and your infantry pretty much alone in terms of first fire, subsequent first fire, final protective fire, moving, routing, rallying, the whole 9 yards. You don't have all that other stuff to make it easy for you. You're not going to have rate of fire 3 weapons. You're not going to have Panthers rolling down the guy's sleeves, freezing them all day long. It's just man-to-man, literally man-to-man combat. So you're going to have to try and master that in a variety of different scenarios. All the scenarios aren't going to be the same. There's a number of them. The first one is what we're showing here. LM2 is an assault upon a defensive position. The Chinese, the KMTs are pursuing the Red Chinese army through China, and that's pretty much the series theme. Is the KMT wants to seek out the Red Army and destroying the communists. And so the KMTs are reflected as the regular, quote, regular Chinese, and the Red Armies are reflected as like partisans or the brown counters for like the Russians. So we'll go through the first scenario. A lot of historical information is online. Go to a number of sites, look up Long March ASL or ASL Long March. It is an interesting series. The first 3 scenarios I've played, they are all different types of victory conditions. You have the same units, but you have to use them slightly differently or attack slightly differently in each one. So I'm really liking that so far. Scenario special rules are very simple. Although we've had some discussions on a couple of them, we iron it out, figure it out. Some maps are kind of screwed up. You just figure it out. It's not that hard. It's not rocket science. But the interesting part is that you score points based upon your performance during the scenario. If you win, you get like 6 or 8 points. But if you completely destroy the enemy, you get a bonus points. But if you lost a whole lot of troops, you lose points. So although there's a lot of destruction of units, your performance may go up or down. So if Mark beats me in this first one and trounces me, he gets like 9 points and that's it. But if I destroy half his units or most of his units for him getting that victory, he may only score 6. And so that's kind of the key there, is you're going to score a slight variation of victory points based upon the number of units you destroy. So, resisting the constriction. First scenario, 6.5 turns long. Lots of troops, lots of single troops. We legit have 2 support weapons. I have 30 squads, 30. I have 2 support weapons. So that's pretty much the flavor of it. They are interesting. They may seem boring, but they are interesting. If you need toys in your scenarios, go play with your toys. This is not the place to be. Anyway, scenario LMT, victory conditions on this one here. We'll go over the conditions, and then we'll go. There are some scenario special rules based upon the units. It's not that big a deal. Anyway, the tactical objective. I'm not sure why you can't say scenario victory conditions, because you can't record that. It's not copyrighted. KMT wins at game end, which is me, by accumulating 20 victory points. Victory points is 2 for each controlled hut or pillbox. So huts, essentially buildings, are 2. Pillboxes are 2. Or 2 and 2. 1 for each trench controlled. 1 for each non-controlled collapsed hut with a blaze counter. So if you blast the damn huts and mark them on fire, then they'll have a blaze, and you can do that with like point blank fire infantry fire attacks. So pretty much you got to control his defensive position, and the huts are worth a couple points as well. Not too bad. Moderate conditions. The nationality characteristics primarily the Red Chinese are partisans, and so what we've been learning is that the partisans don't cower, they don't surrender versus the route phase method, and a couple other things in there. He does have some special abilities beyond that. They do have commissars, very important, but we're trying to mix the two. We don't really want to confuse the two between them. So the first one, I think we kind of ignored the cowering part, but I think it really didn't matter at points. And he surrendered to me, but based on his routing conditions, he really couldn't route anyway, so he just failed to route. So that kind of was like a wash. But anyway, you'll see in this particular scenario what's going on. We're going to start the game. This is going to be a discussion of our game afterwards, at least the first one. The second one's probably going to be a full replay. But we go in the discussion of the game, why he set up the way he did, my plans, and we go through how to do our plans. We go through human waves, of which I've done 3 in this scenario. A little bit of aircraft in this scenario, which is unusual. And then also his forces coming on is slightly unusual in that aspect as well. So hopefully enjoy it. Hopefully enjoy the discussion. Mark and I really are enjoying these games. We're learning a lot based upon our own play styles and just the rules. Lots of little rules will come out popping here and there. So hope you enjoy it. And give a thumbs up if you do. If not, give a thumbs down. Say this is crap. I don't want to see this anymore. Let's go on to something better. But it's fun so far, and I'm going to continue to play it until it becomes unfun. All right, thanks a lot, and enjoy the review.
All right, so the communist Chinese are basically stuck in about the most static defense I could possibly imagine in an ASL scenario. So basically, the scenario requires there to be a line of trenches and pillboxes along one of the rows, anywhere from where I can set up, which is from row Y and south. Okay. Now, since I have to set up a whole row, you're actually very limited as to where you can set up the row, because pillboxes and trenches cannot exist in building hexes. So you have to pick a row that doesn't have any buildings. So that leaves the communist Chinese with only 3 rows that they can actually put this line in, which would be Y, W, V. Okay. So I chose V primarily because my initial idea was to be as far back as possible, so that I can get maximum fire upon the oncoming wave of KMT troops and take maximum advantage of that. Unfortunately, as the scenario winds down, you find that this was not, in fact, the best idea. We'll kind of highlight that as we kind of go through. But my initial defense strategy was to basically set up as far back to give me as many turns as possible to fire on them, basically crossing through open ground. Communists get 2 machine guns. They get a light and a medium, so I decided to put them both in pillboxes. The idea being that they can lay down fire lanes to help kind of to maximize the destruction as they kind of move across, which was another reason why I wanted to put them as far back as possible. By doing so, I gave myself the most possible hexes that I could kind of hit, so I could kind of cross, kind of do a cross pattern of fire between the light and the medium machine gun. I thought if I was too far forward, I wouldn't get that ability to kind of crossfire across the 2 of them. Again, as I find out, I think there are problems with putting the machine guns in the pillboxes, which we'll kind of come up with later. But this was what I went with. Put units in each of the trenches that left one last unit, which I basically just decided to put in the building behind there. The idea being that if somebody breaks, I can just kind of route them back to here, and this guy can just insert himself back into the line. I know there's a lot of reinforcements coming in on turn 2 along this edge. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to deploy them. Again, that's another reason to rethink the strategy later, but I was concerned about the aircraft coming in, so that's another reason why I wanted everybody to be in the trenches so they get maximum protection from the airplanes coming in. And so my idea was just simply to just try to pick off as many units as I can until he gets on top of me and can human wave me, and hope I have enough left, with my reinforcements to kind of stall him before he really takes too much of the trench line. So that's my strategy, and I'll move on to Stu and the KMT.
Well, the KMT have two distinct advantages. One, lots of bodies they get to litter the battlefield with, and two pieces of artillery that can't hit anything. So, given that, seeing that his trench line is so far away and the volume of units that I have, the only thing this scenario screams human wave. You've got nothing but conscripts, so conscripts moving in the open are just going to die anyway. You're going to be taking the same 1 morale checks and normal morale checks, simply because there are no 2-level morale checks on the low columns. Anything up to 4 firepower, which you won't have that without a fire group, is going to be 1 morale check at best. So with that, the only way to get up there is you can't take 3 rounds of fire in the open. He's got 6 range, and plowed fields really screws everything up. If these weren't plowed fields, I could get on top of them in no time at all. So, and the thing that kind of screwed me over the beginning is he's not within human wave charge zone or charge range right at the beginning. So I legit just have to move up within range. And since he has a range of 6, I don't want to move into range of 6 during that movement phase. I want to do that during the human wave. So at least I have advantage of the excuse me, increased morale factor. Plus, the biggest thing is that I will not get pinned. Any pin results are going to be null and void. So with my 7 morale for my conscripts units, if they barely roll a 7 on the morale checks, which is likely, they continue to move, and we'll see some of the results of that. Yeah. Leaders, everyone's in the open. I've got 2 mediums. It's going to give me a little peppering. I'm going to try to pick a couple targets that might do some damage, chop up some fire groups. I want to avoid his medium, which was up at the top. I've got 2 hedgerows to avoid that medium, and I split my group here from between top and bottom to force his medium to stay at the top of the map. If his medium comes on the bottom part, it's going to create big problems for me. So this force up here has to advance into actually the best cover of the game that I have, and either just keep him honest and keep him there, or maybe try to do something later. I wanted to set up a human wave for an attack up there, but the timing's got to be right because the volume of units I have up there is pretty low compared to the number of guys that could fire at them. So that's got to be a timing thing. The artillery pieces, they do have smoke. Smoke 5, so if I get lucky, then I can have a little bit of smoke cover, and then it'll be pretty much all over for the red Chinese if I get the smoke. The 75 artillery is still pretty strong too, 75 star. If they hit, they'll be breaking a couple of units because that's going to be a 12 chart. So I'm happy with that. Fighter bombers, they'll be gone by the end of turn 2 when his reinforcements come on. Strafe the trenches, avoid the pillboxes. You're not going to do anything against pillboxes because the machine guns, it's not attack is NA, so all of his good troops in there. So if I get a couple of free breaks from that, that's great. The only thing I really need them to do is to really screw up his reinforcements coming on. Bombs, I haven't hit literally the broadside of a barn with a bomb. So those are free, but the 6 firepower is very strong in this game, considering most of the troops are not going to be in good terrain and defensive wise. And hopefully I can catch some of his guys out in the open. And that's about it. And every little broken piece counts in this one, simply because it's pretty much a wide open fight. And so let's just go proceed with the log. There'll be a couple spots where we stop and discuss a couple things, either rules wise or just strategy wise. But most of it's the first couple turns is just essentially moving and getting shot at. So we'll move through that pretty quickly. So let's just proceed. I think this is a rally phase. Make sure I don't screw anything up. We got a little bit of setting out some zones. Again, the guns weren't that good, and I just start moving units one at a time. Do not move in stacks. One at a time, because you never know what he's going to fire at you. And again, all the plowed fields are 1.5 movement factors, and with our conscripts having 3 movement factors, you move 2 hexes a turn. Another reason why you need a human wave, because you're not going to get there in 6 turns. You need the 8 movement factors. So the units are moving up. We are on the red Chinese. Turn 2.
Yeah. So far, not much has happened. Line is holding, so that's at least holding according to my initial strategy. So far, so good, I thought.
And Mark did get Wild Breeze. So this is actually something very good.
We did actually get a weather change in this game. So there you go.
Yeah, and that's very good for me, because if I happen to drop smoke, it's going to affect. Let me fix the zoom. It's going to affect a lot more hexes than just one.
Yeah.
So I love the mild breeze coming. It's kind of coming back at me, but any mild breeze whatsoever is good. It would have been great going north to, or however, what's the north to east to west, and that way it can get full wall from. But I'd already malfunctioned one of my guns, and they're not actually out of smoke yet. I may repair it, I'm not sure. But the mild breeze looks really good, can really help the KMT in this scenario. I mean, it could almost break the scenario at that point. So,
yeah.
But yeah, still out of Mark's range. He's got a couple LMGs firing. He's, there's enough decent stacks that he could fire at. But with 2 firepower, as Mark said in our pregame discussion, these aren't 4.67s with good range. They're just 3.37s. And so immediately up top, he fires on my guys. Pin's guy, CR's a guy, which is not good for me, because that's going to be my reserve human wave. And I need that to put pressure on later. And he pops a couple guys. Defensive fire phase comes, and my planes pretty much just strafe in a 4-hex strafing. I put them off to the side, so we don't just have a counter stacked on a whole bunch of stuff. So I can kind of keep track of things as the things are expanded. I just expand them, so we can see them easier and keep track. Because brown under brown, just for me, it's just easier to track. And so. Did I break any of your guys, Mark? I broke one guy, right? One guy, one pin.
Yes, you did. Yep. So you did. So it was fairly effective from that regard. You take one of the guys in one of the trenches out. So that was a as good a result as I think one can reasonably expect. So,
yeah.
Yep.
And the routing in this one here, it's very interesting. Like the broken unit, the guy that I broke there, and I guess it's V4, V5, V3. He can't route up to the Zhao, up in 9-1 up at the top, because he can see the units, my units at the top board. So if anybody breaks, they have to make sure that they can route somewhere. That guy can only route straight down, which is at a bad spot, to Dang. But the problem is Dang's in a pillbox, and it'll be over stacking. So Dang's got to come out, or vice versa. You got to do a shell game at that point.
Yeah. So that is kind of like one of the disadvantages about like putting your leader there in the pillbox, precisely for that reason, because it does because you do have to play the shuffle game, which can be difficult to at least which was one thing that did strike me as I was doing this, which did complicate things. So,
and that gets
there's something there. Yep.
That gets a lot stickier later, doesn't it, Mark? That gets a lot stickier later. And I guess it's a really good example of if you put all your units on a line, instead of maybe a triangle shaped or 90-degree angle shaped, where you can always route backwards to safer positions, because it gets pretty nasty later. Turn 3 was like the
it does.
giant part. This is great. It's just both my guns are malfunctioned at this point. So so I guess they had some bad chow mein last night, and they made them sick, and maybe something happened. Maybe the gunner just got sick. He's throwing up on the side or something. I don't know what's going on, but.
Yep. So that looks kind of like it was, so far, like, oh, that's fairly good news. But as we said, the routing is going to become very difficult for me very quickly, and that's going to start raising havoc. So that's where we are. All right. So we're in the advanced phase, which of course, I'm not going to really. Yeah. So I tried to figure out, how do we get him in there, sort of thing. And so the leader has to come out of the pillbox to get to him. So that's something that becomes interesting as we move on. So
And
we're should be at turn 2. Yep.
yeah, and one thing to note, Mark and I are as we're playing through these scenarios, each of the nationalities has their own like little distinctions. Both sides can use each other's support weapons without capture penalties because they're both Chinese. You know, they just happen to be different factions. And one thing to note, and I think, and I'm pretty sure we kind of skipped over through most of this particular scenario, is that the red Chinese are partisans, and so they will not cower, and so therefore Dang has the freedom of mobility of leaving the LMG behind and not having to worry about it being cowering. So I'm not sure if we
Right.
picked that up
Which I
until
don't
later
think
on.
yeah, I don't think we were entirely aware of it,
Yeah.
you know, at that time. But yes, but that is something that is important for all you guys who are going to be, you know, playing the communist Chinese as we, make sure you read up on the partisan, and because that I think is very important for the communist Chinese forces throughout these games. So
Yeah.
as we are slowly learning.
Right. And in this game, you'll see. We'll revisit it. We'll just come back to that concept of them being partisans later. So I
Yep.
do repair one gun and I destroy the other one. So hey, I'll take that any day of the week. I'll take that any other week. I don't think they hit anything in the entire game, but they try. They damn well try.
Yep.
I fired as many units as possible. Again, the medium machine gun, just shoot it, pick a target, fire at it, hopefully it'll break. And everybody else is just going to go. So here's the human wave. First human wave. So I'm pretty sure I screwed up the human wave diagnosis. Well, I guess I'm using this unit to charge this unit. So the human wave has to go along. Essentially, at that point, it would be an alternate hex grain. What I did is I think I put down just a straight line, which I didn't want to do. I think that's good. So I'm just labeling them all here, and then I think I just pull them off to show Mark that okay, all these guys are human waving. I don't want an extra 500 counters on the map. You know, so we kind of pull them off. And so the hex grain, I think, is, let me pull here. It's not necessarily a hex grain. Let me fix it. It's like a hex row. So that was my initial hex grain. You don't want to lay it like that. The concept of the human wave, you want to control your human wave such that you're laying down like a fire lane. So it's sort of like you're laying down a fire lane and then you're running along that fire lane. So this is an improper placement, which is the concept that I thought. So I either have to go with the alternate hex grain, which is like, right, let me get it. Oh my God. Like right there. So it's like the zigzag up. So I could go, these guys with the target units, so it would either go up like that to that location, or I could choose the bottom half and he can go down like that. So the difference being is, once you set your alternate hex grain or your regular hex grain, like down a row or something like that, then all your units have to move in that general direction. And any units that move away from it, let's say this unit in the beginning, let's say if this was the alternate hex grain here on the bottom, he can move here, 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 and he's not moving away from the alternate hex grain. But he can move here and then one more to Y4, and then he'd have a range counter put on him, and that means he can't move any further away from the hex row until he gets closer back to the hex row. So it doesn't funnel your attack to one exact point. It keeps it spread out a little wider. And I think I laid down my quote fire lane human wave right in the middle, and the way I calculated the range was kind of screwed up. We had a good discussion on this during the game, and I think we came to the conclusion that I screwed it up somehow, but it didn't. You know, most of my guys just kind of went forward anyway. I might have gotten an extra hex here too, but I don't know that it mattered too much, other than just getting the rule wrong. You know, it wasn't terrible, but
right. Yeah.
We're getting better.
It would be something to just kind of step through. Yeah, yeah. When we are certainly going to get a lot of practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Human waves.
Right now, right campaign. Here. So, you expected the human wave, right, Mark? At this point, you expected me to do human waves.
I expected you to do a human wave. Yes, okay. I certainly figured that was probably going to happen. So, but as we said, this is probably where some of the weakness of my setup starts becoming manifest. The medium machine gun cannot really do anything to help. okay, due to the due to the hedgerows that are there, and the fact that you have to set up, the fact that again because of fire lanes, fine, I can set up a fire lane along here, but as you say, you're already past it. So basically the medium machine gun is really not doing very much. So whether that means the medium machine gun has to be a little more centered, maybe here or here,
Right.
or right in the center. So, but then the problem is that as you say, since you have to face north, you might still be able to slip around kind of underneath it, because of the covered arc of the pillboxes. So I'm wondering whether putting the machine gun in the pillbox is even really a good idea in this particular
Right.
case.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So that's something that certainly gives thought. But while I was certainly expecting the human wave, I was expecting the medium machine gun to be more useful. But right now it is not. So that is where weakness begins to appear in the line. So basically, my other option is right now is to just wait until you get within range, within 3 hex range, and then start firing. Just trying to fire. And just put up a wall, and hopefully that'll help to slow you down. So that's kind of my plan going into the human wave.
Right.
But
right.
as we said, the other problem that starts becoming manifest is the 2 squads down here. Again, and because of the hedges, they really, and the fact that they're in the trench means that they basically cannot participate in trying to slow down these units at all. They can't see them. And that's, I think, where another weakness in my setup becomes manifest. So as we said, so as it begins to unwind, there's already 2 units that are basically out of action this turn, and that begins to start costing me.
Yeah,
there you go. All right, so
that shows a
go
lot
ahead.
later on. To me, I mean, when I was setting up here and I played the scenario a little bit before with Greg, it looks really good, those trenches in that location. But just as Mark points out, you need every unit firing, and essentially from that bottom half of units that I cut off from the hedge, that's about a third of his force that can't fire on me, and that could be big, especially since the fighter bombers are coming into strafe again next turn. I already broke 1 unit, so essentially half of his force can't fire at me, and then when I get into range. So, and then once he's in the trench there, we'll see what happens when we reach the point where he could actually fire upon me. The problems that both of us have in that sort of situation there. He's got great defense, and I've got crap offense on him, but numbers has a tendency to overwhelm, but it just gets bloody later on. So let's continue that human wave. And I gotta be honest with you, I kind of got lucky on most of your rolls. Most of your rolls were pretty decently high, at least in this first human wave. Here's where we're discussing like ranges and crap like that. And so we're trying to iron out these little rules that we don't play with a lot. And then they're all just charger forward. Look at I think it's 20 man or 18 man human wave or some crap like that. Something stupid.
Yeah, yeah. It certainly is the largest human wave I've ever seen.
Yes.
So there you go.
So it gets kind of confusing. And so obviously the most important piece in this human wave is Chung, right in the middle. If you take out the leaders, he won't be able to human wave again. But at this point, I'm pretty close. Yep. Now we're both within range. So even if Chung does drop, then simply because I have so many units, it seemed like I had at least a couple 8 shots on you, right, Mark? Even the advanced fire phase. I mean, 1.5 times 9 is like an 8 chart. So maybe I have a 12 chart. So you just add up all the little bullets.
So you actually do end up having quite a bit. And as you said, there really just wasn't too terribly much that it may have been a combination. Here's a IFT roll of double 6s, so you know it's not going well. So they don't end up even being able to lay any residual because one shots and stuff like that. Yeah, they cower off the charts. So.
Yeah. Another problem you had was pillboxes can't form fire groups with units outside the pillbox. So
correct.
Even if you wanted a 6 chart, it would be very difficult to obtain a 6 chart because his pillbox. And they're great defense, but and you probably don't want to combine them anyway. But you never know. You just never know in
Yep.
this game.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
thing to take home.
Yep. Yeah. So as I said, I wouldn't think I would generally do. The idea would be to just try to just throw up, one residuals wherever you can, and just set up a wall, and hopefully, as everybody tries to cross into it, at least you get to pick off a couple extra units, maybe, just from the residual. But that did not happen, and you are in pretty darn good shape, considering how much you've moved in the open. And you said the great thing about the human wave is even those conscript units get eight. Get
Right.
8 MF as part of that human wave. So
Yeah.
so they're forward along with you. So that's
That's like
really
150% more movement speed. It's just ridiculous.
yep.
So,
So
at the point of the human wave, I think this is turn 2. I'm not sure.
yes, it is your turn too. Yeah.
I don't keep track of them. This might be the advanced phase, to be honest with you. Let me see. Because what I
Well,
have to
yeah, we
work.
didn't know. I mean, you probably done some moving. That was the end of the wave. So yeah. So now
You
you
guys are moving up. And I think, these guys just. To be honest with
yeah.
you, the
So
number of guys here. The number of guys that Mark broke. I only lost like 4 guys. Literally just broke 4 guys out of like 18. So it's like that's 25% of my force. That's 100% win when you're dealing with human waves. And so here's my here's my advanced fire on here, and I broke one guy on the bottom trench, which is just gigantic. I broke another guy in the back in U4. It's just absolutely gigantic. And then I think the route phase is here. The routes are pretty odd in this one, simply because there's no really terrain to move through. But as long as you're out of their normal range, which is 3 hexes, you can just route freely, and then or just low crawl. And Chung, that was overstacking right there, so it took some more to go there, but he can go there. So
right, but as we said, the definite one of the definite keys is having the divided force, does restrict my routes, since I can't route up the trench line. I've got really no choice but to fall back. So so that is something that does begin to affect me, pretty badly.
Yeah, those are huts, right? Yeah, those are considered huts.
Yeah,
so they're only going to be +1 TEM plus only 1 hindrance. So it doesn't matter where he is in the back. At least my artillery piece can fire at somebody, and not that he's going to hit, but he can fire on him. So, and the one thing here I'm advancing here, and the quandary I had in my advancing is that Mark's forces come on turn 2, and the scenario special rule says they don't come on the board from off board. You start on board concealed. So what can happen is I wanted to avoid Chen being close here. This is like a key point. It's like I think I moved Chen up a hex. Do I move him up a hex?
Yep. Yeah, I think you did.
I think I moved him up a hex. I think we're talking fire lanes here and stuff like that. Okay, here you set him up. So I think Chen was down in EU1, but I moved him off the hex so he couldn't just start, because the red Chinese can start on the map just like we see here, and they'll be concealed. Not that they're advancing into close combat, but what happens is they can start the game, they'll start the turn in melee, and the attack doesn't occur until the end of the round. But they are still concealed, which is I think we played that right from what we were reading. So essentially, when he's in melee with me, and if I were to fire upon that stack, well, technically by the melee rules they'd probably gone, but I think we played it such that you still get to keep your concealment until the melee, and then he would lose it. So essentially, I just wouldn't blast into the hex, and he would lose a unit, because I got more units than he does at this point down here. That gives him an advantage. That's the way we played it, and that's how we're sticking to it. So he's moving more guys on.
Yeah, and I think you are right. According to this scenario set special rules, it is that they are concealed, and they until either the start of the close combat phase, or they lose it because the KMT fires on them and they get a end result or whatever.
Right. So essentially, unless I want to blast my own units, there's twice as much firepower. I kind of don't want to fire into that. It's a rule that's apart from the regular rules, but it is a scenario special rule. It's like number one that Mark points out. So Mark, bringing him on here, was it a tough decision to bring him on the back, or did you want to jump into close combat with all my guys? What were you thinking?
Well, I did want to jump into close combat here, primarily to gain control of the hedge line. So I was, as we said, we found out in our rules dives and various other things that this setup was bad. Okay, so I needed to, try to gain control of this hedge line and then be able to fire on you as you continue to move forward. And then slip in a bunch of units into the trench line that I can start trying to feed up north, and then the rest of the guys try to get them into the village. Try to get them into the village, and avoid, just the fire that was basically coming in at them. So this was, so in some respect, this was a reaction to my bad setup. I think I would have definitely done things differently if I didn't have the problem of these units here just not being able to fire.
Yeah.
And so it was, so basically I was hoping to clear you out down here to be able to control the hedge line and funnel you off more to this direction, and then so that was kind of my goal there, but it got real bloody real fast, as we're about to find out.
Yeah,
and it didn't work. So.
And also I have turn 2. I still have my fighter bombers coming on, so they're going to try their best to interdict some of these guys, in terms of just specific interdiction, not necessarily rules interdiction. But so we'll see what happens with that. Again, Mark is just peppering the living crap out of my guys up here. Now I got a problem. I have 5 multi-man counters, which is one short of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 multi-man counters. My crew's already there. So Mark's been destroying these guys up here, and this was a real problem for me because this was going to be my reserve human wave section. And if these guys can't put any pressure on this top portion here, then all he has to do is run all those guys south, and the medium can honestly just continue to shoot these guys to hell. They're actually getting +1 shots on them, and Mark is just killing me up there. I'll move up, so Assault move up, and he'll just rip them down. And I guess that's okay, because if that happened to my guys down here, the game would be over. I mean, oh my guys would be broken. If those guys up top, if he's killing 4 guys up there, at least my main force down here is intact. So I think I got super lucky with that. Even though I don't want all my guys broken up here, I'd much rather have, if he's going to get decent rolls, or if I get shitty rolls, or what, if just ASL happens, I'd much rather have ASL happen up there than where I need it to, where I don't want it to happen. Again, I lost that artillery piece. Yeah, they really didn't play a part in this. The fighter bombers did, though. So again, we read up on the fighter bomber rules, and you read those things. They're not too bad, but you just got to read them slow. Everything else, get a little bit of wall advantage near the bottom. These guys are coming on, and as they're coming on, it doesn't look like, I mean, we see the map right there. There's not much. Remember, the buildings do not block line of sight. They're all hindrances. But once they reach in the open ground, there's a lot of units I have there that could just spot those guys moving the back. So they'll lose their concealments.
This was one that did hit. Yeah.
So. All right. So I got lucky on that shot there and actually CR'd you. And half squads are, half squads of 337s or whatever you got are just complete garbage. 1/3 the firepower is just terrible. It's amazing how weak they are. And once he moves on here, that's where I do the strafing run.
Right, and so this is obviously where things go very badly.
Yeah.
For me, and this was, and I was, again, this was part of just being all jammed up in this corner. I just couldn't figure out a way to kind of avoid the nice strafing run that he was going to set up. And it ends up costing me, because I think this is where the commissar fights it.
Yeah. I think I dropped a bomb. Tried to drop my bomb on him.
Oh no! Looks like he. Yeah. All right. Looks like he didn't get. Yeah, that's kind of surprising. I thought he must drop later.
He made it to the first. He made it through the first strafing, but my second strafing, I got the old Snake Eyes. The Valzabat Snake Eyes comes along my way.
Snake Eyes, and that's it. Boom.
And that hurts him more. That not only did you lose a leader, but you lost a commissar, and that as soon as you lost him, it's like. There was like this load off my shoulders. Like now, even if all these 12 guys are on the board, the only thing I have to do is break them. and he doesn't have any leaders except for the 8-1 in one of these trenches that I forgot where he moved on to. So again, because
Right.
of our routing problems, it was going to be difficult. With the Commissar, these guys can just stand out in the middle of the open and just route on like sevens. I mean, it's just pretty stupid. So his guys would be coming back
Yeah.
with that guy gone. I don't know what you felt on that, Mark. I mean, I'm sure you felt crap on that. Again, nothing happens until
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. This was again, as we realize in the next scenario that we end up playing, that so far, yeah, I've had commissars, and they have been, either blasted to bits in this scenario or totally ineffective in the next one,
Oh yeah,
and the red Chinese really need them,
yeah.
in this scenario. You need to be able to rally these units, these broken units quickly and get them back into the line, and it just doesn't happen. So, yep.
Yeah, and I think if that were to occur, we'll see the bloodshed later on. This is turn two. I think turn three is really the game completely changes at turn three. So do a whole bunch of defensive fire, get a couple results here, break one more guy, and again, he's got to break. He's got to run back. He can't run up and down because even at this location here, now he's almost completely flanked by units, and he can't go anywhere but back. So that's something that you need to realize, people, where even if you have a strong defense line, which he does, when you break, you're either standing there or you're running in the open ground behind, because all this is open ground. And I got mediums down here, which is out of range, but these guns can interdict at range. He can't, but if I had him in a better spot, then other things could happen. So was that the best spot for the artillery guns? Probably not. I just didn't want the guns. I wanted the guns here to not get shot by his machine guns. I wanted to avoid the shots by his machine guns. That's the only thing I wanted, because if you had nothing else to fire at, like I've covered in many other games, if you don't give your opponent something to fire at, he's going to fire at the only piece that he can see. And considering these are my smoke generators, I don't want these SOBs broken on the first turn with a decent, because that's why I bought 10, that 10 range. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, FF row is 10 hexes, so I can't really put him up that far at all, because that's just a 4+2 all day. And I think he's got a -1 leader. Yeah, it's a 4+1. And in this game, I mean, that's a god chart. So a 5 is a morale check, and a 6 is a pintash check, and I'm not elite. These are 7 morale. Well, technically I'm elite, but these are 7 morale units. 8 morale, I could put him in the open, but otherwise I can't. I wasn't willing to take that risk in this scenario.
Right.
They were ineffective, so I guess it didn't really matter. Again, it's getting really busy down here. Zhang has got a couple units he's got to rally. His front line.
Yeah. So this is where things really begin to break down. You said, since I don't have the commissar, everybody's got to go back, and this is just a bad location, but it's the best location they have basically available to them. Yeah. And the bodies are just piling up in the hut, and as we said, so he's getting exactly what he needs. He's getting just units broken. And with the conscript unit right there, I can't stay there, so I've got to come out, and it starts getting really jammed up down there very quickly with lots of broken units that are not going to rally. So as you said, that's something in this game. Without the commissar, just these units are not going to rally quickly. The morale is bad. And it just so that is something to keep in mind.
And Mark's got some great melees down here, and these are extremely key. I don't recall how they worked out, but if he wins both these melees, then when I do my second human wave, if I have enough units, and I think I am not capable of conducting another human wave this turn, because Chung's got to rally. If that guy rallies under Chung, then I could do it. If not, no human wave, which I found out later after the fact. It's like I was in dire straits. Like, holy crap, my entire attack is just going to collapse simply because I didn't get 2 guys under Chung, because everyone else is stacked double, and you need 2 guys per hex for a minimum of 6 guys.
Right.
I don't have it, so that guy has to rally 100%. I don't know if I get him this turn next time.
Which is not something that I realized, and so I guess as the communist Chinese, you definitely want to keep track of that. You want to keep track of how your opponent is setting up for his human wave the next turn, and what you can do to disrupt that from happening is probably very crucial. So I probably should have laid down fire on this unit just to keep him DM. So that may have been something that I should have thought. So go ahead. All right, we'll keep going.
Yeah, that's a tough point because I actually have two guys here, and it's like a combination of, do I need to cut that off, or look, there's a stack of 3 guys I could shoot at. So it makes a real tough decision for your opponent. And again, if Mark wins both of these, I'm in dire straits because now my guys have to. Now he's got all of his forces like in a front line there, which is great. I don't. Yep. I'm not. I think these guys just. I think we just gack the melee rules. I think you kill one guy, and the other guy makes it. I'm not. Yeah, that's just a melee. Oops. And then the other one is close combats. I think, yeah, because you CR1 guy, which is almost the same thing as death for you because now you can't fire out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it does not go well. It doesn't go well. Again, perhaps part of the problem was only putting one squad there.
Right.
I think if I was going to do this, you should have gone all in. You should have at least sent 2 squads each in there, get 2-to-1 attacks, and just say, look, I mean, I realize that's going to be, everybody's going to be down there, but I've got to clear those units out of there. I've got to have those units be in front and fire. So I think I end up paying for it because, as you said, they're now basically out of action. So for you, that's perfect.
Yeah. So essentially, they're just like the guys in the trenches at the beginning of the game. They still can't do anything, but yet they have LSI. So it seems like so far of where we've been in this game, and just reflecting on this, because we don't have the support weapons of the Germans, because we don't have the smoke and the tanks with the Americans, there's a lot of little micro things that you have to do right in this game on the whole series so far, and all the games, and both the games we've played. There's a lot of little micro things that can go wrong and go terribly wrong for you in certain cases. As Mark points out, the commissars in both games were essentially non-existent, and they need to have the presence shown. And it's not by his fault; it's just by the luck of the dice. And and that's kind of where we are here. And the next thing that goes wrong for Mark is Yao actually rallies one of these guys up here somehow, and so now I've got my 6 units in 3 hexes. Now I actually have some offensive capability up here, and so we'll see what happens. So 6+1 leaders. Why are they good? Because they can lead human waves, and
definitely something big in this. Yeah.
And the best thing about that is, if it's a 6+1 leader, it's not like a 9-2. He's obviously going to shoot a 9-2. Do I fire at the 6+1 leader, or do I fire at the squad that he's leading? So again, that makes a tough decision. So it's a fairly weak unit overall in terms of leadership, but in terms of troop performance, the 6+1 goes a long way. Goes a long way.
So as we said, you had a very good rally phase. Both of those units got up.
Oh, so yeah, under Chung. Chung came up too. So yeah, this is.
So this was a big phase for you.
Yeah, I mean this is pretty sick, because now you've only got 1, 2. You've essentially got 4. Well, you got 5 units adjacent, which is but what you had before. But I'm super close to you, and your other guys are tied up. So that down the bottom, this is where it starts to get ugly.
Yep.
Gun fires a dummy round, spotting round. So we do another human wave, straight down the row, and I'm just kind of going to burn through this. He drops a wall advantage because we got to move. We just jump across. He jumps to the bunker. And unfortunately, even though it's a different location, I wanted that guy to maybe be able to run through the bunker, but the human wave rules say it's like hex. I entered the hex of an enemy unit or something like that. And so even though I'm not in the bunker, I'm outside the bunker, and I can't be locked in melee. He has to stop there, which kind of sucked, because I kind of want to get to his units in the back down here. And let me just drop that. Who cares about that stupid marker? That marker's worthless. So I kind of want to get deep into his lines. I want to penetrate as deep as possible, just to create as much havoc as possible. And whether it was good or bad, I just wanted, because I knew Mark was like, well, losing the 9's if I can get back to those broken units, it's game over. And at that point, I said, I need to move as far deep as possible. And a lot of these guys, I'm not sure. I start taking some. I think I start taking some casualties here. A couple units DM, and just just the counter density is ridiculous at this point. And whether we go to deluxe mode at this point to keep track of the units moving, because you got to keep track of hex sides. Every impulse you got to keep track of the most. When I got 18 units human waving, if one guy crosses a hedge, they all are considered crossing a hedge. So you've got to make sure when you move all 18, you got to figure out which guy used the most movement factors. And that comes to bite me in the ass because I thought I actually had a movement factor left. And I was actually one short of where I really wanted to go. And we're just going to burn through this defensive fire phase. He essentially just puts down a perfect wall of residual as best he can. And my guys just kind of burn through it. I mean, look at that residual. That's stupid. That's stupid firepower. Those are all -2 shots. But we got to go through it. That's all we can do. And -1 bear, just the extra morale, the non-pinning. I think there were a number of times. I think probably 4 times, at least 4 times, where he would have gotten a pin result, whether it's from a morale check or a pin task check, and you just shrug it off. Again, 3-3-6s, they're not great, but give them non-pinning, 1 more morale, and 8 movement factors. They're gods.
8 movement factors, and they are burning through. So so far, as you said, he's gotten through. That bottom is definitely, the bottom units, all, they're just in disarray. There's a lot of DMs, I've got a lot of broken squads. They basically have almost no chance of rallying. And, and things are just falling apart very quickly here. That line is just collapsing.
Yeah.
And there's not much I can do to help. And as we said, the biggest thing, as we said, is so far is the fact that all these units down here are basically ineffective. They can't fire. So that's huge. So so this is a classic example of a bad setup. Coming to bite. So there you go.
Well, unfortunately, okay. So this is nothing but a cluster of just death going on. We've got a melee here. We've got my human wave guy came in here. He got blasted, but the melee's still going. So the units technically in that location couldn't even fire upon me because he's in melee. These guys enter that location. One guy actually had the movement factors go into the trench. The other guy was stuck outside the trench. You guys got him back here, blasted everything. Those guys are just DM'd. I took a unit back and jumped on his broken unit back there, which DMs him and DMs Dang and his buddies. So this is the penetration, which is, I think, probably the best thing that I could have done in this outfit is just DM those 3 units.
Right.
Half squad or not, they're still bodies.
Yep. But and then that basically seals the fate because there's nothing he can do he can't stay there, and he's just and his routing opportunities are extremely limited, and it just falls apart. So so there you go. That's So
and even if I get these guys DM down here, they can't route. They still, well, besides seeing these guys, they can't possibly route here because now you got him. So sending him deep is good. If he breaks, I'm in the same position. If I break, I'm dead. But guess what? I got 7 morale, no pin. So and I've got lots of units. So this gets. I mean, it's super busy as you guys can see. Let me zoom in even just a little bit more. This is just super busy. Lots of residual. Most of it's open ground or the terrain. So at least we have that benefit that we don't have to worry about, brush or wheat field or things like that. There's only one hedge down there, and the rest of it's just fortifications. If you're not in one of those hexes, it's just open ground, so you really don't have to look at anything. And here's, I think something happened, and the log file screwed up. So there might be a couple units jumping around, but I don't think so. Oh yeah, I placed a couple units. The other one was a human wave up here, and you see the result. That's the human wave that I screwed up. But but you'll see the result of his human wave here. Mark puts down a fire lane down through here. I'll drop that here. I don't know if it actually comes up. Oops. Okay, whatever. It still keeps like that, and then we go. Mark puts down like a fire lane up here. And all my units, that's the the medium machine gun fire lane. And so a lot of I think I'll put my forces best is where I understood where them to be. Yao made it through with a half squad. This might be the advanced defensive fire phase. Yeah, and here's the clip right there. I think he killed one or maybe may have killed one or two units. CR'd another guy. Two guys broke, and essentially I get 2.5 squads and the 6+1. I think he got vaporized somewhere. Is he? Yeah, 6+. Yao kind of died in that shot there. So, but I did get 2.5 squads through the fire lane. And again, I took 6, and this is kind of what I was expecting on the bottom, but I had no choice. But you saw that 1/3 of my force survived up top, whereas in the bottom, 2/3 of my force survived. And that makes a big difference. And that's what the medium machine gun can do, is 2 residual firepower, and these guys got to cross that. You're just going to take it in the pants. And that's kind of what I did. And that's what a normal human wave looks like in the open ground versus one machine gun. But I had to take it there before he breaks out the units. And considering the human wave success I had down bot, there's no way if I human wave this guy that he can possibly get down there. And
and so that was basically it. Yeah. So now the line is cut, and yeah. So the units that are up here, they're just not going anywhere, and that ends up being crucial. So they can't reinforce down at the bottom. So
yeah, once I reach the trenches,
really needed. Yeah.
That +2 is like, I mean, a Holiday Inn. You're just sitting there, you're feeling funny, you're taking care of yourself, and with the firepower, that pretty much the only thing he can do is close combat. And I do a little bit of points right here, throw some points up. So routing, and one thing that I screwed up in this one here is capturing units, partisans, or at least, well, the red Chinese do not. The partisans do not surrender. Is that right? You can always look
correct.
away.
They do not surrender by the route phase method. Yes.
Right. They do not surrender.
We did not realize that at the time.
And so what happens at the end of this turn? This is turn 3. You'll see about half the units disappear from the map. It seems like. I think we counted up. I think we lost 18 units from the map at the end of, at least at the end of your turn, because people are just being gone left and right, and they're stacking up. They're stacking up top pretty good.
Yep, as you can see, and that most of those are, this was definitely a very bloody turn, and you managed.
But I surrendered to you though, right? I surrendered to you.
Well, I think a couple of these are in the surrender box, which may not have been there.
Yeah, that's what the deal is you don't surrender to me, but I surrender to you, and you can't invoke no quarter. So if I just throw my conscripts against him, and if they're in a situation where they have to surrender, he has to take them, which is almost a weapon unto itself.
Yes, as I pointed out in a playthrough of a different scenario, being forced to guard prisoners can have some dire consequences.
I think in that case, the best thing to do, see here, I captured one of his guys down here that this wouldn't exist.
Yep.
Either that, he would just fail you to route. So I'm not sure if it made much of a difference. And plus, considering he didn't really have any leaders down there, I'm sure we screwed at least maybe 2 squads that he possibly could have rallied that were DM, but some other units were there. So in the next game, I think we were catching on to the partisan abilities through the special rules from this series. So kind of burn through here. Dang is in the back. Those guys died for failure to route, I think, right here.
I believe they died for failure to route.
Yeah, because they can't go up north because it's getting closer to like some of these schmucks over here.
127 sitting up there, yep. And so this is where his divided force is really beginning to pay dividends. So I'm really constrained as to where I can go. And as you can see right now is that, as I said, it was definitely very bloody. There's lots of dead units now, but but I cannot afford in this scenario to trade squad for squad. And it's beginning to really tell. I've got we have probably about traded squad for squad right now, and
Yeah.
and so that basically means he's winning. He's just got more bodies.
Yeah.
And now I've literally got like a few half squads and a couple squads left. Most of my guys are broken under DM, and it's just looking pretty grim.
Yeah.
By this point, I think it's he is almost in mop up right now. So so it's going pretty well for him. I think basically turn 3 basically sealed the fate here.
Yeah, I'm highlighting the casualties at the end of turn 3 here. Like you say, it's about a 1-for-1. I think you lost maybe a squad or two more than I did, but yeah,
Right,
there's like 2.5 rows of dead units on the blast. It's just a giant stack of dead units, and and I don't think those are prisoners. The prisoners we stick down the bottom right, and we have to mark red or non-red because we need to make sure who's who. But there's weren't that many prisoners, as you can see. That's on the map. But again, if I took them, if I couldn't take the prisoner, he'd have to route back, and he'd either have to low crawl or be interdicted. At that point, they're still kind of out of the game. And to be honest with you, if you take the prisoners, you're at a disadvantage. So if anything, by both of us having prisoners, it actually, in the long run, since he had to take prisoners and I didn't have to take prisoners, it kind of helped him out because, no, it helped him out because if he had any units to jump in close combat, I might be considered half firepower or whatever. But again, It's just a free for all now at the line. This is just like you're sort of like your World War I trench warfare where they just jump over the line and everything starts dying. So he does have a number of forces down below, but again, that guy melee on turn 2 that he came in, he's still in melee, and now I've got 2 guys on him, and yeah, he drops 2. Oh yeah, that's where I rolled Snake Eyes, and I got Chen 2, didn't I?
Oh yes, there you go. Yep.
Yeah,
so
that was pretty sick. So
yeah,
I
think we both ended up creating leaders, actually in this scenario, which is a little unusual. So
yeah.
I think I get one. I think a multi-man counter rallies or something like that. Rolls 2 on a rally or something like that. So.
And the beauty of leader creation, at least for my part, is that human wave, because Chung's broken, and if I could get another human wave just to kind of that's incredible. And my 9-1 back here, should he have been back there with the mediums? I don't know. I mean, 8 firepower plus 1 is what they're going to get. I tried to move him up, but he seemed to be doing a decent job DMing units. And that's all he really needs to do, to be honest with you. Yeah, here's just kind of like mop-up mode. So, there weren't that many units. We had some interesting rules with bunkers and close combat and bunkers, and adjacent, and can he fire on me, and triple point blank fire, and a whole bunch of stuff like that. It got kind of crazy, but as long as you just kind of go back to the rules, read the rules slowly, try and interpret what it actually means. I think your bunker knowledge, or at least pillbox / bunker knowledge, will improve. Because if I'm outside his pillbox and he cannot leave the pillbox through the trenches, he can only leave through a tunnel, which he doesn't have. So he's pretty much locked in the bunker or the pillbox until he brings other units from outside the pillbox to engage my guys that are outside the pillbox to clear them out. So if they're, and the other thing is I think we had some stacking sort of questions where, if I jump him, I can't go into, here it is. It's coming up here. It's coming up here. So okay. I think I think I break you. I want to get to that point because this was a really odd situation. It has to deal with Zhao's bunker up on the top. We'll just go fast for this point. Again, most of this was just a route at this point. I think I'm not sure what happened.
So as we said, so down here is where certainly now you've got a lot of prisoners, which probably you shouldn't have because they wouldn't have surrendered by the route-based method, so they might have attempted to low crawl away or something along those lines. So again, was it probably going to make a huge difference in the game? No. But it is definitely something to keep in mind. So
right. So I think the log didn't cover it, but what I think happened here, or something strange happened here, is I don't even know what the hell happened here, Mark. I know that the prisoners attacked one of your units and then he became like a half squad, something like that. I became like a squad, or in the bunker with you. It's like the prisoners killed something or somebody died. I think this half squad died or something like that. Yeah, that's what it was. I think this
Okay.
half squad, something happened. Somebody died. And so when they die, the prisoner units in the close combat became armed. So this was like an unarmed unit. Let's put a 126
Oh,
there.
right. Yeah. And then
And
yeah.
so what you had then is you had his leader in the bunker with my guy in the bunker that was a prisoner who got rearmed. Now you actually have a melee within a bunker
All
because we
right.
were melee at that point. So your prisoners turned armed, and now his leader's here. And that was the weirdest thing. I don't even know if we still resolved that or not, but um, I don't think the rules really address that because you can't go into melee with guys in bunkers because you can't enter the bunker. But if I'm already in the bunker and the pillboxes, I do not believe. Maybe you just can't take prisoners in pillboxes to alleviate that potential problem. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. As I
but
said,
it's
yeah,
but it's
we
not
never
a
kind of.
transport, right?
Yeah.
It's not counting its stacking only for portage point purposes. Doesn't matter. So I couldn't put like 6 prisoners on a truck with my half squad because it exceeds the truck's capacity to actually carry units. But in stacking, you ignore prisoners, and so that's kind of what happened. Was it's like, okay, what the hell's going on here? When the guys inside the bunker are in melee, and the guys outside the bunker, I think I had some guys outside the bunker too. It's like, okay, is there like a resolution? Do the guys in the bunker attack first and these guys attack second? Or because you can't combine their firepower because it's like a quote fire group, whether
Yep.
your combined melee attack is considered a fire group. um I'm not sure if we looked at that or was that defined or whatever, but this became a really rules contention issue. Like, how does this happen? And it was just really
Mm.
odd. Again, it didn't really make that much difference at the end of the game, but it was something that came up that you normally wouldn't think would come up. And I think the guy CR'd or something weird. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, it's exactly what it was. Is I was outside, and I think I may have CR'd you, and I think you killed me.
Okay.
So I think I'm
Yeah.
dead. So I'm outside the pillbox. I'm gone. But you got CR'd, and since my prisoner was part of that close combat, he gets rearmed, and then immediately is in melee with Zhao at 1-to-1 odds, which
Right. Yeah.
which puts him
Yeah.
in the pillbox with
Yep.
Zhao. So that
Hmm.
was a weird situation there. Um,
Yep.
yeah, that was just weird. But anyway, yeah. So the game ended there. Again, we did a couple things wrong with terms of my setup of the human wave. Make sure it's an alternate hex grain, like you see there on the map, so you can tell exactly the distance is much better. And I would suggest using these lines or something else instead of just the stupid counters, because you could lose track of the counters here. If you lose track of this, then you're probably as dumb as me. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
that's all
Yep.
I got to say. But so now let's focus on your defense, Mark. You had some comments on your defense on the
Yeah.
line. So
Yeah. So
let me
we.
reset the
Yep.
map, and let me reload the map,
Okay.
and then we can go to a better view of complete log. There we go. A better view that kind of cleaned up a little. Again, it was really messy. Lots of dead units. So it's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
So
This certainly was one of the bloodiest scenarios I think I've ever played. Just the casualties are just fast and furious. I mean, this
right,
was.
as a regular scenario, right? It wasn't even a campaign
Yeah,
game per
yeah.
se.
I mean, yeah. Again, the vast number. I mean, you've got 30 squads. I mean, and I end up with 22. So, I mean, so just the number of squads on the map, and you're literally talking about like a half a map board. I
Yeah,
mean, is just incredible density of
yeah.
units. You're not going to see this terribly often. So,
Right. So go ahead, resync with me, and then you can adjust your line as you wish, and then you go into your
all right,
discussion.
I'm
So,
going to go ahead
but this is
and
the key point here. We discussed what could have happened, because after we found out that the trenches behind the hedges really posed a problem for him, he's like, okay, where the hell do you put them then? You can only put them in a couple spots, and
Right.
intuitively you don't want to put them as close to them as possible. But we got to thinking about it, and then Mark will give us comments on that. And
Yeah.
I think we both agree on this.
Yeah. So as we said, so the general idea initially was, all right, set yourself as far back as you can, and give yourself plenty of time to fire in the open. Unfortunately, since you have no range, you've only got 3 hex range. I think I think paradoxically that was bad decision from that standpoint. And also, these 2 units being in trenches here means that they can't really fire out, so they're basically out of action. So I think I can try to, hopefully I can select anybody.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So I think we'll just kind of slide it up here just for the moment. This won't be quite right. Oh great.
Yeah. Yeah. For some reason, it doesn't select the fortifications. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's assume that the fortifications all ended up here.
Let me see if I can move them. Hold on. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah, go right ahead. Yep. You can do it.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So we think, so on further examination, we felt that that row Y is probably the best row. Now, again, because of the rules and the fact that you have to set up in a line, and neither bunkers nor trenches can set up in a building hex, that literally leaves you 3 rows. So as we said, so it's row Y, row W, and row V. Okay, are the only 3 rows that you can set this trench line up in. Okay, so what we felt is that putting them as far forward as possible, because now you can human wave. You can start the human wave because you now are within 8 hexes. Okay, so you can start a human wave. However, you're not going to get there in the first turn. Okay, you'll get closer, but you won't be able to get there. And the fact that I am now closer to you means I can just start laying firepower here, and these 2 units here can actually contribute, okay, to firing. So I think you can you can set up a wall of residual out here. That's 3 hexes, so you can definitely set up the wall of residual and you can just hit everybody as they're coming through, and then subsequent first fire, right there. And so I think you get a couple opportunities to fire. Now, the other advantage is that now you've got a lot more room in back. So your flanking force, if you want, your flanking force can kind of come up and spread out a little more. And if they can set up back here, okay, yeah, they can set up, somewhat back here. Now you've got a second line of troops, even if they get through the trenches. Now you've got more open ground on the other side, and a bunch of units that can fire on them as they're trying to get into the village. Especially if one of these 2 attacks goes poorly, like the north attack goes badly. Now you down here have to face now I've got to try to actually get into the village to steal a few extra points because I got to get 20. And now you're facing a second wall of units who can now fire on you in the open, basically, and set up another wall of residual plus a subsequent first fire for future turns. So I think on further examination, I think setting too far back basically took out your fire opportunities. So he's going to get close anyway because you can't really fire on him, and being able to set up this way allows you to basically get 2 opportunities to fire on him as he's crossing open ground to try to get to his victory hex, try to get victory points.
Now, do all your units have to start? Your units don't have to start in the pillboxes, correct?
Well, that may also be another thing, but the Red Army must set up a single contiguous line of trenches, pillboxes from the east edge to the west. All pillboxes must have the counter. Yes, that is true. Is that they do not have to set up in there. They have to set up the fortifications, but they don't have to be in there.
Yeah.
So
I think your setup here completely destroys the KMT, and I just by physically moving those units on. So the first guys that are in the map yes, these guys can score some points and things like that, but uh, I could human wave the first turn. The problem with that is the only way I could human wave is coming down this little hex row here, and guess what? One little LMG rips all those guys to shreds. Anybody else in
Yeah.
the human wave goes through the plowed fields, and you stop. 1.5, 3, 6, 7.5. You stop. You know, two movement
Yeah.
and one movement
Yeah.
factor short. So the only guys that can make it are here, and they can get shredded easily just by, like you're saying, you drop residual. Even if you don't have the LMG there, you fire
Right.
a
That
3
may be
hex
a good
range
place
and
to
2
put it.
hex range, then point blank. So you could
Yeah.
cover all 6 of these hexes, even if you final protective fire. And that in and
Right.
of itself is good enough. Up top might be a little trickier, but you're going to have more firepower. Assuming that's the way I set up, you're going to have more firepower. Plus, your LMG and your medium is going to be within range of wherever he sets up his artillery. He'd have to set them up way back here. So that's
Right.
pretty good there. And I was looking at your guys coming in, because like you said, it gives you more room for. Let's say you put your flanking force back here, and so when my guys take two to 2.5 turns to get through your front row, what are these guys doing back here? They're entrenching. Every
Yeah.
single one of these units is entrenches, so essentially you have a secondary row of this, and you entrench more than 3 hexes away, most likely. So therefore, he's half firepower, you're half firepower, and you might have more units there. And if these guys break, they rally back, or they could
Yep.
reinforce this way or that way. And the other thing I thought was, hell, the first thing you could do in turn one is I'm not sure where your medium. Oh, there it is. It's ghosting now when you move them. Is you could legit just screw these guys in the front. They're staying there and dying. Turn one, well, you just keep your you just keep your 9-1 back here with the thing, and you just put them out of line of sight. Well, yeah, I guess you set it first, but put them in a
Right.
building or a hut, and then see where his artillery pieces are, and then see that's where your fire lane for this thing can really come into play in case he wants to go back there. So
Yeah.
now you have the
Yeah.
freedom, like we were
Was
discussing earlier.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking that, yeah, the MMG setting up in one of the bunkers
Yeah.
is not a good idea.
No. I'm thinking of it
Now
right
you
here.
get,
I mean, he could fire
yep,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He could fire the entire way that way and get a
yep,
fire
or
lane going there.
fire the entire way the other way.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, he could set
and
up
so
here
I
and do
think,
both sides. Yeah, that's crazy. That's a sick spot right there in
yep,
T5.
yep. So I think, yeah, so I
Wow.
think there is something to be said for, yeah, maybe not trying to occupy the entire trench line, um, or or as you say, or at least kind of keep the MMG back and give it freedom of maneuver. So either if you want to protect it a little bit, maybe think about putting it in one of the trenches as opposed to one of the pillboxes,
Yep.
because the trench I think still allows you freedom of fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, but as you said, it may still be advantageous for you to set the machine gun back as far as you can, so you can just literally cover the field,
Yeah.
just as you do down here to a certain extent.
Yeah, exactly. We did it exactly the same sort of thing. I hadn't even thought
Yep.
about during the game. It's like I'm just using this guy as the pepper guys, and I just wanted to avoid your guy up there, and I didn't even think of your using your MMG defensively. I thought of you
Right.
using your MMG offensively, as I would be doing. But I think in this one, you're using your MMG wholly defensively, and
Yep.
just stopping the horde from coming. And yeah, yeah, you're absolutely spot on with the bunker thing. Yes, you want the +3, but it doesn't give you any field of fire that you really need for any fire lanes to come down. Yeah, I think this would be one hell of a nightmare to go through. I mean, it's up there front. Yeah, you'll get points for these, sure, but I mean, if you fail in one area, which you most likely are, then at this point you don't need all these guys back here. Send like 5 squads and the commissar up front. That's where the commissar goes. Send the commissar up front with 5 squads. They break, he jumps in their hex and rallies. He can
Yep.
run up and down this row almost with impunity because the firepower of the enemy is so low. He could
Yep.
take an
Yeah.
8+2 shot because you're not assault moving in a trench. You always get the +2, so it's going to bounce off of his back, and he's just going to rally. That would be a friggin' nightmare. Even
Yeah, that's probably that's probably a good idea. Yeah, just kind of just get commissar right in the line and just sending him up and down the row
right,
as you need to. So
and that's
yeah, so I think so I think this is I think the great thing, as you said, and I think why you're attracted to the series as a whole, and why I think this is going to be kind of an interesting adventure, is that precisely because you don't have all the tanks and all the goodies that we're all used to, for the most part. Okay, you really this is really you have to maximize the resources you have available to you, and you know that those, as I say, that commissar can be extremely important to the Red Chinese,
Yep.
and you know, and just, you know, where you place those few resources that you have available is you know, is crucial. And you know, and you don't have a lot of time often to just kind of correct for your mistakes. So
Right.
you know, so you have to be really careful. You have to maximize the resources that you have. You know, and I think we're beginning to learn that as we kind of go through.
Yep.
You know, and so I think they're right. I think this is going to be quite a good test of kind of infantry combat, and you know, maximizing your terrain advantages and maximizing, as I said, maximizing the resources you have available to you. So this will be interesting as we move along. Also, as I say, I am just kind of learning ASL coming from the SK world. So, you know, so there certainly is a learning curve on my part behind it. So, hey, hopefully as we move on to later scenarios, you know, we'll give you some better competition. But this was a great start.
We're learning
We're
everyone.
learning, and this was you know, and this was you know, I'll said a lot to learn from, and hopefully we'll just keep learning as we go along. So there we go.
Yeah, and like you said, Mark, I mean, we don't have toys that all the other nationalities can rely. We don't have 4 or 5 mediums to run around. LMGs give us range. We only have what we have, and we've got to make do with that. And this is, you know, more than anything. I mean, sure, you get tons of squads, but just using your forces effectively, and it's going to be the little details is what's going to matter in these scenarios. What I've gathered from the first 2, and even the first one I played, the LM1, it's the little details that of just moving. Where can I move? Where can I go? Where is this commissar going to be? You know, where do I need to where do I need to lay down my fire lanes? It makes you, because you don't have 12 LMGs to cover everything.
Yep.
You've got like one, so it's got to be in a good spot.
Yeah. To say, you just got to be very cognizant of that. And so I think we're learning that as we go through, and hopefully, as you say, hopefully, you know, playing these scenarios, you know, and learning how to maximize your infantry resources carries through.
Yeah.
You know, into your classic late American, you know, late war American versus German, because now you're used to how do I maximize the resources that are available to me, and so should help you play generally as you kind of move along.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be exciting.
Yep. So I think that's about it for this.
Yeah, it's good session.
Yep.
And then we've got we finished our second scenario, so I think I'll play the actual replay on that because we're getting good discussion with there. And the reason why we did it this way, I think we can bring out more of the scenario, more of the small details that was part of it, instead of just like, you know, just okay, here's what happened, and yes, he lost it down here, big deal. But there are a lot of little things that led to that. It wasn't like he just got technically overwhelmed. There were a lot of little things that came into play, and we just wanted to point those out. The second one is a lot different flavor. And so we could slow down the discussion. There's not as much excitement in terms of 85 units being lost in one turn, you know.
Right.
So you'll see a big difference in that game, and that's what I'm liking so far. Is just there's not much variety in troops, but there's a variety in terrain, victory conditions especially, and it just makes it really the flavor that I like from it so far is just the variety of the different types of situations you're put in with the same troops. So you've got to do different things with the same troops, and that's what makes it really good. And the next scenario is actually a blast too, just as well. So thanks a lot, Mark. I had a great time doing this, and we'll see you in the next scenario. Well, there you have it. End of the game. It was kind of a wipeout. Once my forces got up to that front line, it was like wildfire. I took tons of casualties. We both took tons of casualties on turn 3 or 4, whatever it was. But after that, I kind of had units left over, and I kind of had them bedazzled, whatever. But I think Mark's analysis of the setup is spot on. That if you set them up front, those guys are just going to get wiped anyway. He might score enough points to win that way, but that's still a lot of units. And the other units can protect the village. So, interesting in terms of defensive setup, you would think you would set up backwards. If you guys want to play a scenario, set your guys up forward and let me know how you do. I'd love to see your Valzo logs on that. If you do replay it, send it to me on my ASL Skills Discord server. The link will probably be below, or check one of the Tactical Tuesdays sessions. Get one of those links from that, pop it in there, and upload and just load, Valzo replays. It'll be log file review on there. So just load your log file review up on the ASL Skills Discord server, and that way I can take a look at it and contrast the difference. May make a video out of them if you guys make 3 or 4, whatever the case may be. I think that's pretty interesting, and I really like looking at log files to review, to see how other people approach the situation. You'll be surprised how different people can attack the same situation. As simple as it may be, their concepts of attacking vary between one another. So thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, thumb up. You can support the channel by going to Patreon. You can support the channel by viewing it and sharing it with your buddies, etc., etc. You know how to do it. Social media, use it, abuse it, and we'll see you next time on Basil Lima Stew.